Welcome in on this illustrious Tuesday evening, a fine Tuesday evening, if not but for the College Football Playoff Committee stealing Christmas early. We'll talk about the proverbial Grinch. Before we get there, I'm joined by the one, the only Kyle Henderson. Kyle, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing amazing. Ready to talk some college football playoff rankings. It's that time, and we start to look to all the resumes along the teams within the top 8 because, look, we're already in the playoffs. When you talk to Alabama Crimson Tide football players, when you talk to other coaches, everybody knows you're on the elimination list at some point. So you got to win to get in. And there's a lot of scenarios that we can go over. Alabama still at the 8 spot. Georgia now put at the number 1 spot. So I'm amped up, excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and I loved hearing that from the team, the recognition weeks ago that, hey, we knew coming off of that Texas loss that it's crunch time. We got to win from here on out, and I think pressure creates diamonds, and we have got to talk about this new list because I think if anybody was in here last week, you're probably going to guess I'm not too happy with the list, and guess what? You'd be correct, and we're going to get into it. I'm going to go ahead see if I can't share this list with all of you because it is wild in my opinion. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have the top 15 teams pulled up. You have Georgia at number 1, as Kyle stated, followed by Ohio State at 2, Michigan 3, Florida State comes in at 4, followed by Washington 5, Oregon 6, Texas 7, Alabama 8, Missouri 9, Louisville 10. Now, Kyle, there's only one favor the committee did Alabama within this top 10, and that's putting Georgia at number 1. But I'm going to go ahead and run the poll. I'm going to go ahead and ask you, did the committee get it right?
Yeah, I think putting Georgia at the number 1 spot was the thing that they should have done to begin with. I mean, this is the 2-time defending champ, and I think what they were looking for from Georgia was another solid win, and that is something that they did get. I mean, you look at their last 2 wins against Missouri and against Ole Miss. Those are quality wins, and the fact that they have Brock Bowers and the way that Carson Beck has been slinging it, I think that this Georgia team is the team that should be number 1, and that is a little bit because of the historic, but also because of how they've been playing. Look, Kirby Smart has his team rolling. They proved that they can win without Brock Bowers. They've just won 2 games that are very notable. I think, Missouri right here is what are they ranked? Number 9, and then Ole Miss number 13. I mean, those are their last 2 games, and they won those games in convincing fashion. So I think putting them above Ohio State was a thing to do. And I know Ohio State coming off that win against Michigan State was a win that they were supposed to win. Ohio State's wins, their key wins are against Notre Dame and against Penn State. Clearly, Georgia has more marquee victories, so that was the right thing to do, was to put the Georgia Bulldogs at the number 1 spot. And what that does, if you're looking at it from Alabama's perspective, is you look at, okay, look, we already know what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take care of Chattanooga. We're supposed to take care of Auburn. The Auburn game is going to be very difficult. It's at Jordan-Hare. We all know the elements that go into the Iron Bowl. And then you start to look to that SEC game, and the championship game in Atlanta is something that the stakes are high. Every single game from here on out, the stakes are high. And that game in particular, it's going to be interesting to see what the committee does, because we have to see what is happening around college football. As you know, Ohio State is going to play Michigan. Florida State is going to play Louisville. You have Oregon, who's going to play Washington. So we're already in the playoffs. And of course, Texas, when you look to their resume and look to how they've handled the last 2 weeks, they've won their last 2 games by a total of how much, fam? 6 points.
Very slim margins. Listen, I don't disagree at all. Georgia at number 1, I think, is due. I think they're a great team. They handled Ole Miss. They handled Missouri. And I think it sets up for an Alabama-Georgia matchup in the SEC championship game that's going to give us absolutely fireworks. And it would be a crime if the SEC champion is left out of the college football playoffs, if Alabama is to down the Dogs. Now, it's going to be a tough game. Alabama has to get through Chattanooga. They got to get through Auburn first. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But outside of the committee putting Georgia at 1, Kyle, I have a big problem with something on this list, and it's the same problem I had last week. I agree with you about Texas. Yes, they've gotten some struggle wins. But do you want to know what I can say about Texas that I cannot say about Oregon? Is that Texas has gotten some struggle wins when their quarterback got injured. He came back, they're winning, but they have 3 ranked wins. They and Alabama are the only 2 teams with 3 ranked wins. How in the world is Oregon ahead of Alabama and Texas. And I released this poll to the chat and I asked, what is FSU's key win? We have 83% of the voters saying LSU. And chat, I released that very purposefully because as we can see, LSU, I do believe, is FSU's key win. And if that's the case, then why isn't Bama getting the credit for beating LSU?
Sure.
If the committee is telling us that FSU beating LSU is better than Washington beating Oregon, then why is Oregon ranked ahead of Texas and Alabama? Their own rankings don't make sense. The way they're saying the FSU game is valued because they beat LSU, Bama beat LSU. Bama beat Ole Miss. Kirk Herbstreit was just sitting up there talking about how great it was what Georgia did to Ole Miss. And I agree. What Georgia did to Ole Miss was really impressive. Bama held them to 10 points. Kyle, why does it feel like Alabama isn't necessarily getting the credit that they deserve for the teams that they're playing? Or am I reading too much into this?
I mean, look, if you want to really compare resumes, I mean, we do a resume kind of comparison between Alabama and Oregon back at Bama Football on YouTube. And when you look to these particular teams, you look to Alabama and the fact that they beat Ole Miss, they beat Tennessee, and they're able to beat LSU, right, within a consecutive stretch of games. They're 7-0 in SEC play. They've won 8 games in a row. This team is on fire. And you look to how that transformation of the team from week 2 to this point in time, this is a completely different team. And I think Alabama was almost penalized for losing an early season game against, a very good Texas team. Now, straight up, Texas beat them in week 2. Now, if those two teams are to play today, who's the better team between those two teams as of this moment in time? I mean, you look to the fact that Texas was able to beat Kansas State in overtime, a game that the Wildcats should have won. And then last week, they allowed 20 points in the fourth quarter against TCU. It wasn't pretty. So then when you throw Oregon in the mix, look, the AD from Utah is on the selection committee. So he's been able to see Utah. He's been able to see Oregon. And you also have the Nevada AD, who I guess let's label him a Pac-12 guy anyways as well, just because they're out on the West Coast. I don't know if they have any pull in that, but they do like the Pac-12 and they do like the Washington and they do like the Oregon team. And look, Oregon wasn't really penalized for losing to Washington. That was a 3-point game on the road. I think they do like style points. And what I mean by style points is playing a weak schedule and racking up points. I mean, Oregon right now has the number 1 scoring offense in the country, 46.3. They're led by Bo Nix, who is a minus 150 Heisman Trophy contender, playing out of his mind against competition that, let's face it, is subpar. I just think when you stack up the Pac-12 against the SEC, we've seen this story again and again. I know the past doesn't dictate the future, but we all know that the committee likes style points at this point in time. The good news is that these two teams have to play each other again. Look, I'm not saying that Oregon isn't a good team. I'm not saying that Washington isn't a good team. Playoff type team, there's a different caliber of teams. Alabama right now is red hot. In my opinion, Alabama right now is a top 4 team. The way that they're playing, they're firing on all cylinders. Nobody wants to deal with Alabama's defense, and nobody wants to deal with Jalen Milroe. And that's the truth of the matter. I mean, you got to take care of Chattanooga and Auburn, but when you start to compare the schedule of strength, Oregon number 63 on Power Guru. Guess what Alabama is? Number 2. Number 2, right behind Purdue. I think Texas has the number 8 overall strength of schedule. But other than that, I mean, Alabama's gauntlet and the transformation is something that needs to be noteworthy. And Kentucky's AD is also on the selection committee. He's the lone rep on this committee. He had a firsthand seat to watch Alabama versus Kentucky. If it wasn't for Kool-Aid's muffed punt up into that game against Kentucky, Alabama would have been up on Kentucky like 49-0 at halftime or whatever. That kind of gave Kentucky a little bit of momentum. But right now, this team is laser hot. And in my opinion, teams should be ranked how they're playing at this point in time. So that's what's a little bit frustrating about these recent rankings.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the rankings, a holistic approach needs to be taken into account. Because listen, I think that Texas did beat Alabama. They should get credit for that. Bama 76 in chat. I completely agree with you. You're saying Alabama's schedule has lended itself to where they are one of the only teams with multiple ranked wins, 3
Yes.
for the college football playoff. The only other team to do that is Texas. I just don't understand how Oregon is ahead of them. And I do agree with you. I think if they met today, these are 2 very different teams. Alabama wasn't able to capitalize on some of the big plays in the early portion of the season that they're able to capitalize on now. The offense is running completely differently. The Texas defense has continued to be the strong suit, but that offense hasn't ever recaptured that same magic that they had against Alabama that night.
Sure.
The defense continues to impress, but that Texas offense, even though we know it can be good, they just haven't ever had that same magic that they had against Alabama. Here's the good news, Kyle. When we look at this, 2 and 3 are going to play each other.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan and Ohio State, they're going to play each other.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State, they still have some games in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Bama, UGA, they play each other. So do you believe that this is going to be something to work itself out? Because there is an uncomfortable situation that I can pose here in a little bit, that the committee will be involved, but do you believe that by the end of this, the committee will be taken out of it and that the games will have figured this all out for us?
I mean, I got yes and no. I mean, I think the good news for Alabama fans is the fact that Georgia got slotted to that number 1 spot. So now Alabama knows that they just have to take care of Chattanooga, can't buy into the rat poison, can't watch shows like this and have to handle Auburn to get to Georgia. And then I think that if Alabama is to beat Georgia, it's going to be really difficult for the seeding committee to leave out the SEC champ. Granted that was your number 1 team that you had ranked at the number 1 spot, and a team that has now won 11 games in a row, you can't leave them out of the playoffs. The SEC champ. At that point in time, if Alabama's to run the table, they're going to be 10-0 in SEC play and riding an 11-game winning streak, and that is if they beat Georgia, right? I know that's all hypothetical, that's all rat poison, but that is something that you're going to have to deal with. When you look to Oregon and Washington, those 2 teams are going to play each other. Now, if Washington finishes undefeated, if Florida State finishes undefeated, and look, Florida State plays North Alabama this weekend, and then they play Florida on the road at the Swamp. I don't know. I mean, Billy Napier, I don't know if he's going to really be able to, get the best of Mike Norvell. That team's playing at a very high level. I've been hypercritical of Mike Norvell, and not necessarily of him as a coach, but of Florida State. I watched them the last couple of weeks. I know it's against a lower grade of competition, but they're pretty good. I mean, Jordan Travis can certainly spin it, and those wide receivers are ultra talented, and I think they're just a lot better than the competition they were playing. I thought they made some good second half adjustments against Miami. Pretty good team. I like the quarterback at Washington. Who doesn't? I mean, the receivers that he has as well. I just think the Pac-12 lacks a defensive component, and I don't think their strength of schedule has really provided them an overall resume to sit at this table. The other thing is you could potentially have a 1-loss Big Ten team, right? Because each Michigan and Ohio State, where are those guys in the Big Ten? They're both on the East. There's nobody on the West, and they need to swap those teams out so they could play twice, going forward. But one of those teams is going to be left out, and now you have Jim Harbaugh saying to everybody else, what are they? America's team. He said that yesterday, right? He said that it's America's team. In Ohio State, they've been able to win games. They were trailing Rutgers at the halftime break, 9-7, came back and gutted out that win. All these teams are going to play. We're going to have that weekend where something happens. This is kind of odd for this weekend. I didn't know this up until this morning, but Oregon State, I think this is right. Help me out in the comment box. Are they still a 2-point favorite against Washington in Corvallis? Is that right?
Is that so?
I think they are. I think that's -2. Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, so as you can see, I mean, those are some games that, everybody has eyeballs on. But, I mean, once again, the top 8, no surprise, is all favorite in the games that they're played. We're looking forward to that game between Michigan and Ohio State. A lot's going to be solved. You have to look at kind of Michigan and everything that is going around with them. Right now, they are allegations. But with that said, there's already been some punishments handed to them. I don't think, and listen, this is very important. Listen up. I don't think that the NCAA, the selection committee is going to be able to make moves fast enough by December 7th or whenever the final rankings is to penalize Michigan. You think they're going to move that fast? No. It's going to be handled next year in some sort of, situation to where they're penalized for 2024. There is nothing that is going to happen to Michigan other than Jim Harbaugh missing these 3 games unless they find something just, like a bombshell, which they're not. It's going to be onto next year, but I don't think, Michigan, if they win, they're in. So, and it's going to be hard to not take them if they're just a 1-loss team as well. Same with Georgia. Ty, think about this. Sorry to interrupt you, man, but think about this is if Georgia is to lose to Alabama at that point in time, that'll be their first loss in how many games? Whatever, right? Are you going to leave a 1-loss, 2-time defending champ out of the play? That's going to be a hard team to lose, to leave out as well.
It feels dirty.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
They'd be close to a 30-game streak at that point if Alabama is to slay that dragon. Back-to-back natties. Kirby has proved himself to be the only other coach that should enter into the conversation next to Nick Saban in terms of if you're having a team right now, Nick Saban's off the board, who do you take? The answer is Kirby, right? You have Kyle Whittingham. He's a great coach. Mm-hmm. Kirby is separating himself. This is getting to where when I look at this, you talked about how Michigan and Ohio State, they're going to deal with each other. That's mm-hmm. going to be good. I think that you hit the nail on the head with Washington as well. I didn't realize that they were a dog to Oregon State. Yeah. We also have to realize that defense is a little bit susceptible, and Oregon State, they can spin the ball. DJU has been much better over there. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to talk what you said about the NCAA as it pertains to Michigan, because I've only seen the NCAA move its feet quickly one time. And it was 2 years ago after the NCAA versus Alston case hit the Supreme Court, and Justice Kavanaugh looked at the NCAA and stated, your entire antitrust structure is in violation of the Constitution, and you cannot basically not pay your workers on the theory that you don't have to pay your workers. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you realize this, Kyle, but 10 days later, all of a sudden they figured out how to do NIL. It was 10 days after NCAA versus Alston came out, and that's all of a sudden so the NCAA is not going to do anything unless they're acting in self-interest, and even then they're going to do it poorly. That's neither here nor there, but I completely agree with you. There is a way in which this sorts itself all out. The only thing that makes me uncomfortable is if Alabama, let's say they beat UGA. So the SEC champ is sitting there with one loss. Mm-hmm. Let's say Ohio State continues on. So you got Ohio State in, you have Florida State in. Let's say Texas wins. Mm-hmm. You have Texas because the committee already says they're giving them that 1-to-1 head up. Mm-hmm. What if Washington wins out and loses to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship? Who gets in? Oregon beating Washington or Georgia losing to Alabama? I know who I would put in because it's a slap in the face that Alabama isn't already ahead of Oregon. Mm-hmm. But ladies and gentlemen, this is why I make such a big deal out of it. Because there is a scenario in which the rankings as they pertain right now could matter, and it makes no sense. Talk to me about that scenario, Kyle.
Well, I mean, wasn't the scenario last year tied to where TCU lost their conference championship game and still got in, right? Isn't that the way it went down?
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if Alabama goes this entire distance of this journey and they're able to slay the Bulldog, and then you're left with the one-loss Georgia team that's still, just based on the quality and what they've done the last couple years or whatever, they're able to still make the playoff. I mean, that happened last year. This is the type of world that we live in. There's people that go into this room and they decide the fate of these teams. It's really a travesty to the sport, to be honest. It's not done. It stinks. Did you know that the Michigan athletic director is on the committee? Right. And I get it. He can't, participate in some this, that, or the other. But I mean, still, it stinks. I think if you get into a situation where you have these one-loss teams, and you have a one-loss Alabama who's the SEC champ, and you have the Pac-12 champ, I would just be mortified if at that point in time, and Georgia is still ranked number one going into that SEC title game, that Alabama isn't sitting at the top four. I think Florida State is certainly a shoo-in. You got to think the Big 12 team the Big 10 is a shoo-in. And then I guess if Texas can gut out the rest of these wins. Now, look, they have games against Iowa State and Texas Tech. That Texas Tech game could get squirrely, 100%. And then whoever they play in the Big 12 title game, I was kind of high on Oklahoma State, but did you see what happened to them just this last week against Central Florida?
It's called Gundying.
My goodness, man.
It is wild.
They lost, 45-3 or something like that. So the Big 12, I'm just, at this point in time in the Big 12, you just expect the unexpected. Pac-12 after dark, we all know what goes down over there. But look, those teams are finding a way to continue to win. I think this year more than ever, all eyes have been on the Pac-12 because of Coach Prime, because of everything that's been going on with the Pac-12 and the Pac-12 dissolving. They have never had more notoriety in college football since, since Reggie Bush, right, was over there. And I think about this, Ty. This is one of the things. I'm talking about Oregon with this. Oregon gained so much momentum fake momentum when they beat Colorado, because there was a point in time in the world of college football. And look, what Coach Prime was able to do in transforming a roster, that was amazing. But I used to cover Colorado. I used to live close to Boulder, so I go to Boulder frequently. And it's a challenging place to win football games at, right? Regardless of who the coach is. They don't have the resources. It was amazing what he was able to do anyways. But we all knew that they were going to be more of a pretender than a contender. But people in the world of college football felt that Colorado and Oregon was going to be this crazy game. Vegas didn't. Vegas knew that it was going to be ugly. Oregon got propelled from winning that game, and that was kind of like a secret kind of bump up for them. And then the fact that they did play Washington close, and Dan Lanning is a guy that everybody does like. And Bo Nix is really playing out of his mind. But overall, I think schedule is strength of schedule, they just don't have it when you compare it to what Alabama has done in this gauntlet of the SEC schedule. And considering the transformation of Alabama overall, I mean, has just been really remarkable. And the job by Coach Saban, this is one of the rare times where he's up for the Coach of the Year award, when he's really having to be coaching. His eye is bloodshot red. It's about to pop out of his face. I mean, Jalen Milroe, look at him up for quarterback of the year award, when there were so many people that felt that he was never going to be able to throw the football. Talk about the transformation. This season has been remarkable on all fronts, and it's built on defense. The one thing that has been consistent with Alabama has been the defense. The defensive adjustments for Alabama in the second half, if you look over their entire second half, have been remarkable. And look who they've went against, okay? Let's talk about this real quick. They went against, who's the coach of Texas? Steve Sarkisian, one of the best offensive minds in college football, okay? Then they went against Ole Miss. Who's the coach over there?
Another genius play caller.
Genius, right? Lane Kiffin, who's, by the way, has outgrown Ole Miss. He's outgrown it. His 2 losses are to Georgia, to Alabama. Texas A&M, call Lane Kiffin. Call him up. I know everybody wants him at Alabama, but right now, if they call him and offer $100 million, how can you turn it down? Okay, they also went against Texas A&M's wide receivers. Those wide receivers were ultra talented. Too much for Bobby Petrino, too much for Jimbo Fisher. Those wide receivers were electric. Tennessee's wide receivers, really good. The quarterback, really good. Who's the quarterback, Ty, of LSU?
I think the best quarterback in the nation, Jaden Daniels.
Thank you. And who's his key target?
Which one?
Malik Neighbors, right? He's a first-round draft pick as well.
Kyron Lacey.
Yes, exactly. So those are the teams that Alabama was able to put away. Those and the defense specifically. You want to run the football in Alabama? You want to play Big Ten football against Alabama and run the football? Go ahead. Alabama's defense is built to stop the run. The secondary is complete. The inside linebackers are phenomenal. They've had a couple of injuries, but nothing marquee. This team is healthy. They're hungry. This Alabama team is a team that nobody wants to deal with. In my opinion, this is the hottest team in college football, right next to Georgia.
Last week I quoted them and I compared them to Hansel because I just gotten done watching Zoolander. Hansel's so hot right now. That's Alabama right now. Yeah. They are Hansel. They are heating up. Jalen Milroe is one of the most progressed passers in the nation in terms of what he has continued to do. And hats off to Tommy Rees. I think we need to, as Alabama fans, as college football fans, we need to give a lot of credit, not only to Nick Saban. This has been a sensational job by the GOAT, but Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees, they have done phenomenally. Yep. Kyle, we've seen more growth from Jalen Milroe from Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Texas A&M to where we are right now than we saw from Jalen Milroe 2 years under Bill O'Brien. That is wild.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Now, I get it. He's getting more of the lion's share, which will inevitably lead to more growth. But Tommy Rees is starting to find something in this offense, and it's getting scary. We've talked about the other teams in this situation. Let's look ahead to what Alabama has to go through if they want to come out the other side. You have Chattanooga, Auburn, Georgia. You referenced Chattanooga's played some teams close. This is going to be a game where they're not going to give it to Alabama. Alabama has to take it. I think Alabama is going to be uber focused because some of the things you said. But Auburn is playing pretty well right now. And Jordan Hare, ladies and gentlemen, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. The stadium is cursed. Great fan base, but that stadium, freaky things happen when you play in Jordan Hare. Talk to me about what Alabama has to do. Obviously, win out. But the committee is saying they want style points right now. Does Alabama need to make it a little bit sexy?
Yeah, probably so. I think that, any sort of, first half slip up, or when you're not showing that you can't put together 4 quarters of play, is certainly going to hurt you at this point of the season. And I think that I would assume that the committee members know the importance and the challenges that take place at a game like the Iron Bowl, because there's so much that goes into that particular game. Look, when I first moved to Tuscaloosa, I didn't know about the Iron Bowl, and I went to down to the Iron Bowl. I tell the story often down at Jordan Hare. And Alabama was straight rolling. They were undefeated. They were led by Jalen Hurts. And guess what? The defense was actually led by Kevin Still. The defensive line, I had never ever seen a defensive front beat up Alabama like that before. Auburn goes on to win that game, and Alabama actually still makes the playoffs. Doesn't even play in the SEC championship game, and that was the year where you had Tua throw to Smitty. It was crazy. That was my first year covering the team. That stadium, anything can happen in that game. Bo Nix has beat Alabama before in that game. I've seen tight ends rise up in that game, and you didn't even know who they were. Remember, that was a game where Mac Jones' tooth got chipped out. I mean, Auburn's a hard-hitting team. Auburn is playing at the right time. They're peaking at the right time, I guess. And if they want to salvage this season or whatever, what better chance to do it than to derail their in-state rival in Alabama? Hugh Freeze, you know how many times he's beat Nick Saban? He's beat him twice. How many coaches around college football can say that? Maybe Gus Malzahn, and maybe there might be somebody else, but Hugh Freeze has beat Nick Saban twice. He did it when he was at Ole Miss, and those games had a ton of points on the board. Against Arkansas in this last game, Hugh Freeze said that they could have scored whatever they wanted against Arkansas, whatever they wanted. He said that they had to dial it back. This is a team that is going to be dangerous. They're going to present a lot of challenges for Alabama just because it's that type of a game. With that said, Alabama, knows what's at stake, and they're going to have to rise up to that game. They're going to have to rise up. They're already in the playoffs. We're already in the playoffs right now. And another key point is that when Georgia, the number 1 team in college football, when they went down to Jordan Hare this year, what was the score early in the game? It was 10-0 Auburn. Auburn was winning that game until Brock Bowers in the third quarter put it into 4-wheel drive, and he caught like 17 passes or whatever. So it's going to be a difficult game. Hugh Freeze has beat Nick Saban before. Everybody knows what's at stake in that type of a game, and all eyes will be on that 2:30 kick on CBS.
I was really hoping heading into this year, if a situation like this, Auburn would be a bit better. Maybe that Auburn would be ranked. It didn't work out. And that was a real big hope. But I always hope Auburn's ranked. That way when Alabama gets that win, we get to say we beat a ranked Auburn. To your point, though, not only is Alabama playing in an environment which has been hostile, right? Alabama has lost at Jordan Hare with teams that have looked unbeatable.
Yeah.
But they've also lost to Hugh Freeze multiple times. This is going to be a fantastic recipe. If you're a college football fan, tune into the Iron Bowl. Easily one of the best games every single year, regardless of how each team is playing, and that's what makes it a rivalry. It's one of those games where toss all conventional wisdom out the window. You just got to go out there and play. I think the mindset you have continued to allude to is the mindset that will lead Alabama to a successful outing against Auburn. And that's the recognition that every single time they take the field, it's a playoff game. Every single time. No. I think they're going to get the style points against Chattanooga. I think they continue it and look to get those style points against Auburn. And when we look way, way ahead to Georgia, this is such an interesting matchup because defensively, the two teams, schematically at least, mirror each other a little bit. But Kyle, what's the one truth we know about if you're going to beat a Nick Saban or that type of scheme defense, you better be able to test them deep.
Yes.
You better be able to keep them honest. Just so happens that Alabama has a quarterback that's hitting the deep shot, rivaling the best quarterbacks in the nation and is developing every week. That game is going to provide fireworks. And I find it impossible to believe that if Alabama walks into Mercedes-Benz Stadium and downs the number 1 team in the nation, they don't get in. But nonetheless, here we are, and more shocking things have happened. How do you like Alabama's matchup looking way too far ahead to Georgia?
Look, in a big time players step up in big time games, and I think in the beginning of this season, this team was more sophomoric, and the reason I say that is because of the players on the offensive side were mostly sophomores, right? Jalen Miro, he's a sophomore. Isaiah Bond, he's a sophomore. Jam Miller, he's a sophomore. Kendrick Law, he's a sophomore. Tyler Booker, he's a sophomore. Caden Proctor, he's a freshman. Mamari Nyblack, he's a sophomore. Should I go on? I'm not making excuses, but there's a reason that the word sophomoric exists, right? It's not a complete team. It's not where you want to go. I think during this point in time, those guys are starting to play more like juniors. And I think the fact is that we saw against the LSU game is that Tommy Rees has, unleashed Jalen Milroe, and he's not afraid to do that. And I think that's the scariest thing in all of college football. He's the most dangerous player in college football. You have to, I know there's a lot of people that don't want to admit that, but he is. He's 6'2", he's 230 pounds. He was clocked at 20 miles an hour running the football, and he can be faster than that. You saw the imposing will that he could provide to, the players against LSU. He can completely take over a game 100%. He actually willed them back in week 2 to take the lead against Texas. He threw 2 costly interceptions on that, but you see how he has transformed. The defense is really good, and the teams that have beaten Alabama historically, let's just take the teams that beat them in the last 3 games, right? Texas, LSU, and Tennessee. What were those teams able to do? They were able to beat Alabama over the top. They had really good quarterbacks. Carson Beck is playing at a very good level, and he's going to challenge Alabama's secondary. With that said, Georgia can also run the football. As I said earlier, it's tough to run the football against Alabama, so it's going to be a heavyweight fight. Nick Saban said going into that game against LSU, look, these are heavyweight matchups. They're going to get theirs. We're going to get ours, and it's who can continue to sustain that consistent level of football that's going to win that game. And you have to have big time players step up. Turnovers are going to be a major factor. Special teams are going to be a major factor. Talked to Will Reichert today at the University of Alabama, asked him about those 2 kicks that he missed. And he said, as soon as I hit those kicks, I knew I missed them. He said he kind of went into, the process of what goes into his kicking and said that his hip was out, whatever. Regardless of that, he is the best field goal kicker in the country. So you have to rely on all the weapons. And you know who you haven't talked enough about, and I'm not saying Utah, but the world of college football, is James Burnip, their punter. He's been able to flip the field, and when you can flip the field in those type of games and play field of position, I think that's huge. And he's another added weapon. So Alabama on all fronts are really good. I still would like to see somebody else returning punts. I know that's kind of a heated topic. Maybe they'll get Isaiah Bond, an opportunity at some point down the road.
Yeah, that's the one area whenever we were just talking about this, the improvement from Kentucky, which we'll dive into Kentucky whenever we meet again on Thursday afternoon, right here on the Bleacher Report app. If you were wondering when you could see Kyle and I coming back at you with more Alabama football news. That was the only thing I could think of, is just the special teams, particularly punt return. It's got to be better, both fielding the punts, blocking, all of that. And you're right. I don't think myself or the average Alabama nor college football fan is giving Burnip the credit he deserves, because playing that possession game and where you can pin your opponent, that's huge. Now, I told you this last week. I said it again. It's awesome you got to talk to Will Reichert. He knew that he missed those field goals as soon as he kicked them. Well, I knew the second he missed them that Bama was back, baby. Bama was
you
back.
said that.
It was time to dominate. Yeah, that's what I knew. And I hope that domination continues. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gone over the college football playoff rankings. We have talked about what Alabama must do going forward. Thursday, once again, Kyle and I will be back. We will go over what we saw against Kentucky. We will talk about what we need to see against Chattanooga. I know you might think that's a sleepy game. Do not sleep. Alabama must go out and take a win. They need style points per the committee. Let's talk about style points. We're going to have all you can take then. Kyle, before we get out of here, any final words?
On Thursday, we are going to ask you this question, okay? Who is going to be the 3rd quarterback to play? There's some rap. All right, fam. What's up? What's up? I appreciate you guys watching Ty and I. He does such a great job, and you can catch him at Around the Sports Table, one of the up and comers on the YouTube platform. How's everybody doing today? You guys off to a great start. Today is Wednesday, November 15th. Got a good workout in this morning, feeling amazing. Really grateful for you guys watching that show. Let's take in some calls. Give me like 1 minute while I set up the call-in line. I'll be right back, and then we'll get the show continued with the call-in line. I also have Coach Saban's SEC teleconference at 11. But happy to take some calls and talk some college football with you. So give me 1 minute. I'll be right back, and then we will talk some college football. So just give me one. Literally, it shouldn't take me but 1 minute, and I'll be right back. All right, fam. What's up? I appreciate you guys hanging on tight. Let's go right to the phone lines. We'll do a 601, but the call-in line is open. I'll put the call-in line at the bottom of the screen. I'll throw in some more graphics. I've just completed Washington's resume for us to look at yesterday. We looked at Oregon's. We looked at Alabama's. We looked at Texas. I've updated Alabama based off the teams that they have beat in the updated college football rankings. So with that said, let's go to the phone lines, and we have 601. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Who am I on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, good morning, Kai. It's Jay from Pensacola. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Jay? I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for joining me today, man. What's on your mind, man? Go ahead. Fire away.
In the state I don't like going to, New Jersey, but that's besides the point. I was pleased how you played with against Kentucky. I was very pleased, and I want to see. And I agree with the guy you was on. I agree when we were rocking missed the whole punt, missed the whole field goal. I knew Alabama was back. I agree. I agree with that 100%. Like, cause if it means taking away the field goals, I'll take it. I want all of it, but if it means taking away, I'll take it. I'll take no field goals over touchdown any day. But like the whole play, I think everybody. I gotta say, seeing back-to-back complete performances, and Greg McElroy said it best. He like this team is dangerous, and nobody wants to play this team.
Yeah. And I said that too. I mean, I've said that. I think I said that a couple of weeks ago. Is that I think a lot of people have a hard time saying that this is the hottest team in college football because they're so fixated on the fact that this team lost way back in week 2. I mean, I asked Coach Saban, I asked Will Riker about the transformation of this team from week 2 up to this point in time, and that's why I keep harping on the fact that teams should be ranked based on how they're playing as of today, November 15th, 2023. Let me ask you a question inside the comment box, okay? Look. If you look to the last 2 games that the last 2 teams have played, right? Like, so let's just take Alabama versus Texas, okay? The last 2 games that Alabama has played against LSU and Kentucky. Look at how they have played in those particular games. In a marquee stage, huge stage against LSU, they're able to take care of business and come out with the victory at home. Then they're able to go to Kentucky and play another 4 quarters of football. You look to the other, and that game could have been way worse than what it was. And then you look to Texas, for example. You had Kansas State. That game was at in Austin, like at their house, goes into overtime. They should have lost that game. And then they go to Dallas-Fort Worth and they play TCU, and they allow 20 points in the fourth quarter, and they only win that game by 3 points as well. So Texas, their last two games, they've only won by a combined 6 points, where you look to Alabama, the way that they are trending. I mean, these are two different teams that are playing at completely different levels at this point in time. You look to, you could even throw in the Pac-12 schools. I mean, look, they were, you had Oregon that was fighting up with USC. You had Washington, who was fighting with Utah. So, and I get it, those are above average teams. But I'm just saying, like, at this point in time, I think Alabama, and that's why I labeled it being boxed out, because I get it. They lost head-to-head to Texas, 100%. But when you start to look to resumes for Alabama and Texas and you start comparing them, I'm like, how is a resume like Texas, like I'm about to show you right here, I mean, they are valuing that huge win against Alabama. I mean, they just really are. I mean, they love the win against the head-to-head. I mean, that just values so much, and I think it's something that Alabama's just going to have to work through. We've talked about the different scenarios of how things could, change if Texas is, able to slip up, and I think that's kind of the best hope, because if Texas loses one more game, they're completely out, and that won't be something we have to talk about. But right now, you look at the Longhorns' resume; they're on a 4-game win streak, 9-1 record overall, 6-1 in the Big 12, number 25 scoring offense, 33.5 points per game. They beat Alabama. That's the win that they're living off of. Lost to number 14 Oklahoma at a neutral site game. Won their last 2 games by 6 points, number 18 overall defense. Now, they do have a tough strength of schedule. Playing number 8 overall, I will give them that, and they're missing some key components, they're running back and this and that. But overall, I mean, that win, the committee is just valuing that head-to-head, and Alabama, I mean, that certainly hurt them. What else you got, Jay?
I agree. I agree with what you said, and I feel like I was in door 6. Yeah. The paperwork. I'm sorry. I'm
You're good,
trying
Jay.
to get unloaded.
Yep.
I feel like the roles have been reversed. How Alabama playing at the beginning of the season versus how Alabama playing now. How Texas was playing unstoppable at the beginning of the season. Well, I wouldn't say unstoppable. They were playing pretty good, and now they're playing cracky.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm saying. I mean, you got to rank the point the teams based off where they're at now. But Jay, I'll let you get back to doing that dump, man. I appreciate you joining us, man. Catch up with us tomorrow or the next day. Be safe on the road, all right?
All right, thank you, man. Have a good day.
All right, man.
Roll
See you,
Tide.
man. Yeah, Roll Tide. That's Jay out in Pensacola, always on the road, man. We appreciate him and hope that he's safe on the road. We got a 919 and 832. Let's do 911. Let's do 911 right now. Let's do the 919 right now. Hey, what's up? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who am I on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Kyle, what's going on, man? It's G.
Hey, what's up, G? I appreciate you calling in, man. What's on your mind, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, man? Hey, I've been watching you guys. Like, all y'all are kind of like one big conglomerate family right now. The Final Whistle, Bama Standard, you and Stephen A., you and Ty. So, I think I'm hearing a lot of Bama perspectives. Like the last caller just said, like, we're playing our best ball now, and a lot of teams started out playing their best ball. And if you're really like, okay, I hate to say it, but let's be honest, let's be fair to every team and to the committee. The committee is doing the best they can do, because you can't undermine what someone did, because the current narrative will fit us. Not saying that's what you guys are doing. Everybody's making a case for their team, but we can't knock no one else for starting off hot. And we're supposed to be the University of Alabama, led by Nick Saban, and we started off real ugly, like real ugly. And who's to say they're not penalizing us for who we lose to? Not lose to, but close game, USF?
Yeah, South Florida. Yep.
Yeah, so they could be on our necks for that ugly mess we had going on with them. It's like, I think the way the committee has it, to where win and lose will play itself out. I don't think anybody can keep us out if we beat Georgia. That'll just be crazy, right?
This is the thing that so the playoff committee they send out a transcript, and after each releasing of the rankings, they take calls from the media, right? And what they said last night was interesting. And this is why I'm kind of harping on this whole Oregon and Texas thing being ahead of Alabama, because they say every single week we go into the rankings with a clean slate. So like just complete clean. Okay. And this is why I'm harping on it, because, okay, so if it's exactly, because, okay, if it's a clean slate, then what Alabama just did to LSU and what Alabama just did to Kentucky compared to what Texas just did against Kansas State and against TCU, you're telling me it's a clean slate? No, what that's telling me is that head to head is the biggest factor in the rankings, 1,000,000%. Now, this is what's, and I was talking about this with Ty earlier. This is a crazy scenario, right? What happens if Alabama completely runs the rest of this table? They're able to take care of Chattanooga, Auburn. They even beat Georgia, and Georgia's still undefeated at that time. Could the committee once again, for the second time in a row, have a SEC champ lose and still put the SEC, the loser of the SEC game inside the playoffs? I mean, they did it last year with TCU. Could they do that again with Georgia? Could you imagine that? Alabama wins out and it's Georgia who still goes in the playoffs? I don't think that would happen, but I mean, they did it last year.
I mean, if they got that wild, then I'm expecting Bama Nation to have a little small riots around the nation, because that's somebody cheating again. Somebody's gonna out cheated Harbaugh if that goes down. So listen, okay, if they saying they're going to week basis, there's no way Bama not a top 4 team.
Thank you.
So I'm not with Oregon. I'm not with Oregon in their strength of schedule, but we got to give them the credit they do have. They're not sloppy, and we were our first 4 games. They might tussle with some teams that's a little less than them, but they're not sloppy. You know what I'm saying? They're not jumping off sides. They don't have these crazy misalignments going on. And, you know what I'm saying? They've been a clean team that plays sucky people. So, like, they're kind of getting a default love. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. What else you got? What else you got, G?
We should be closer to that.
Yeah. What else you got, man?
Okay. The last thing I got, and I hope it reaches Bama Nation, and of course it will. I hope it gets to the locker room too. We need style points, right?
Yep.
And the only way I think we can really get the style points is through the defense. Not knocking Milrose, not knocking, what the offense has evolved to. Mm-hmm. I think Bama's best argument is being the prettiest defense, or the most physical defense in the nation. I think we have the best defense.
Mm-hmm.
They say we getting Smitty back by next week, Iron Bowl, maybe championship game.
Yep.
But what the hell are we doing with Trez Marshall, bro? Mm-hmm. What's going on with that? Because he's costing us style points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you. I'll let you go. Where do you rate Henry Toa? Like, was he good to you, or was he like, was he on the complaint train?
No, I mean, look, so Henry Toto, the first year that he was here, didn't really like his game. The second year, he was serviceable, if anything. I mean, these guys that they have now at the inside linebacker when Deontay Lawson is healthy, I mean, these are the Alabama linebackers that we are accustomed to. This is the standard of college football when you have Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. You have, a couple guys behind them, Trez Marshall, I think he's played well. There's been a couple points where you kind of been like, what's going on there? But for the most part, I mean, those guys are graded out well. These guys are a lot better at the interior linebackers than they have been in the past 2 years. And guess who was the defensive coordinator when he was also working with the inside linebackers? That was Pete Golding. I think, a name that we should talk a lot about is Robert Balla. He's the guy who is the inside linebackers coach and a coach that's certainly on a rise. And I think he's done a really good job. But then again, you have some dogs at the inside linebacker. I mean, Deontay Lawson is unbelievable. And so is Jahad. The season Jahad Campbell's been having has been really super impressive. Probably after that Mississippi State game where he had like 14 tackles or whatever, the guy's a baller, man. But, G, I got to get to my next caller, man, but I appreciate you, man. Please call again next time.
Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take it easy. All right, G calling in. All right, we got Mike and Austin calling up next, and then we have a 318. I appreciate you guys hanging with me this morning. Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. It is Wednesday, November 15th. We got Coach Saban's SEC teleconference. You got Coach Saban at 6 p.m. tonight. Look for all the coverage right here at Bama Football on YouTube. Of course, check out the YouTube Shorts. Got a lot of different college football videos posted on there as well, and I appreciate you guys being here this morning, man. Andrew, what's up, man? I appreciate the support inside the comment box. All you guys that are joining me this morning. Gary, I see you inside the comment box as well. Sweet Home, Bama 22. Thank you very much. High Power TV, of course, man. We appreciate you guys. All right, back to the phone lines. Mike and Austin, let's do it. Mike, what's up, man? Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Kyle. Yep, I'm Mike in Austin, but for the next month and a half, I'll be Mike in Alabama because I've come back home to Sweet Home, Alabama for the next month and a half until the first week of January. Then I got to get back to Austin. But and I do have tickets for the big game this weekend. Bama's got their hands full with the Chattanooga Moccasins. So if that ain't anti-rat poison, I don't know what is. I would do all the anti-rat poison I can do. So, but as far as the playoffs go, Kyle, you know, the thing that you just got to control what you can control. And we already know this, right? Bama's just got to take care of business this weekend, next weekend, and then have to play Georgia. That's a pretty tall order. So Bama's just got to take care of business for things to fall into place. So as far as the playoffs go, it kind of is what it is, where Bama's kind of on the outside looking in. I just hope the committee does not have two spaces already reserved for the Big Ten, because worst case scenario is Michigan loses to Ohio State by 1 point, and then they both get in the playoffs like last year. So I just hope that situation is not going to play out. And whoever loses that Michigan-Ohio State game, even if it's by 1 point, I hope they're the ones that are outside looking in. But and there's still a lot of football left to be played where, you know, a lot of things are still going to fall into place. But bottom line is Bama still has to take care of business. Yep. They got to win this weekend. And then they got to beat Auburn, which is, you know, Auburn's gotten better, man. We got to admit that. And then Georgia. So then we'll see where things fall after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're looking at some of these playoff resumes and kind of just going over stuff. Do you mind, Mike, if I throw on Washington's playoff resume and just talk about Washington real quick? Is that cool with you?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Heck yeah. I'm on my phone. I'm not in front of a monitor, but heck yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'll read them out. And I have Washington, I have Michigan's, and I have Texas. And I think I have a couple other. I have Oregon as well. All right. So everyone inside the comment box, here is Washington's. And then after this, I'll throw on, I guess, Oregon. We haven't looked at Oregon today. All right. So here's Washington's resume overall. And as you can see, they are on a 10-game win streak. They're 7-0 in Pac-12 play. They beat number 6 Oregon, and these rankings are fresh off the playoff rankings that were released on Tuesday night. They beat number 22 Utah, points per game, which is 5th overall in the country, 41.0. And the reason I'm listing points per game is because I think it's clear that the committee wants style points. And I think this means style points is having, you know, a team that can put up a ton of points. And certainly Washington has proved that, you know, several times this season. This is the concerning part. They are number 99 overall in defensive play. So when we say that Pac-12 has weak defense or no defense, that is clearly a statistic that jumps out, allowing 25 points allowed per game on defense. The number 40 strength of schedule on Power Guru. Remember, Alabama has number 2. Texas has number 8. The play of Penix at quarterback has been fantastic. The guy is an absolute baller. 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Mike, what's your overall take on this Washington team? Pretender, contender? Do you think this team wins out and finishes out undefeated?
They probably finish undefeated, but pretender. Mm-hmm. This is why. If your defense is overall number 90, that is that is bad. That is pathetic, and that is not a championship caliber football team. So when you get the good offense like LSU, it plays against a great defense that Alabama and Georgia has, you're going to lose that game. But who was Washington's out of conference? Who was their best out of conference opponent?
I mean, we could look at their schedule as well. I mean, they don't really have, a formidable schedule that they played, in my opinion. I mean, it's not that strong. I mean, I'm going to bring it up here in a second. Let's look at their schedule. Because I think that when we zoom in here, I mean, here are the teams that they beat. Okay, so you have, and I'll make this full screen so everybody can see it. So you have Boise, and they won that game 56-19. Tulsa, 43-10. At Michigan State, everybody's beating up on the Spartans this year. Cal, and then they went into Pac-12 play, as you can see. So at Arizona, 31-24, beat Oregon 36-33. That game against Arizona State, I mean, they should have probably lost that game. They were trailing for a large portion before pulling it out, 15-7. Found a way to win. Them and Stanford, the Cardinal, they were going back and forth to win 42-33. USC, that game was back and forth, 52-44, and then again back and forth one more time with Utah, 35-28. So there's kind of how you see it. But out of conference win, I guess, is their best win. I guess who is it? I don't know, Boise or Tulsa, I guess.
Boise, I guess, is an okay out-of-conference opponent.
Yeah.
At Michigan State, that's a weak out-of-conference opponent.
Sure.
But there's some pretty good victories in there. I mean, there's some pretty good victories, and they're having a good season. They got a good offense. But the bottom line is, if they played Alabama, if they played Georgia, and I even say if they played a good Michigan defense, Washington's probably going to get beat. They're just going by their good offense they have, like LSU. I mean, if Washington played LSU would hang with them. It'd be 60-61 final score. I say Washington's pretenders. I say they're pretenders. And same thing with Oregon as well. I say they're good offensive teams. Offense is fun to watch, but it does not win the big game. We've seen that over and over and over again. I think if Alabama or Georgia played Washington, Alabama would play some old-fashioned physical football, keep-away football, run-the-ball football, and Washington would simply give up with the physicality. That's what I think would happen there. So I say they're pretenders. And same thing with Oregon as well. I think they're pretenders. And
let me just talk. Let me highlight Oregon's resume real quick. 4-game win streak, 9-1 record, 6-1 in Pac-12, number 1 in the country in scoring. Again, seeding, the committee loves that. Beat number 22 Utah. The game was on the road. They also lost on the road against Washington, who was number 5. Number 18 defense, points per game, 17.10. The committee loves this team overall. Number 52 strength of schedule, and Bo Nix is a favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. So there's a kind of look at Oregon. That's a tough color on the eyeballs, but that's kind of a glance at Oregon. What were you saying about Michigan? Because I have their resume up as well.
Well, their out-of-conference schedule's too weak to get any kind of judgment on them, and they play a 2-game schedule. Of course, Penn State, and then Ohio State. But I think Michigan's a team that can be beat by the best teams in the other best teams in the country. And I think Michigan's going to get beat by Ohio State. I just hope when they do, like I mentioned, they fall far enough or that they're not taking up any space in the playoffs. But I think Michigan's a very beatable team. And because, like I say, their schedule's too weak to really judge. And I think Michigan are also pretenders.
Yeah.
Now, I think the 3 best teams in the country, Alabama, not in order, but Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, who really knows what they have there. I think Michigan, I think Washington. Texas is a good team too, man. They're a good team. And the reason I say that is because if you look at that Oklahoma game they lost, Texas outplayed them in that game. It beat them in every aspect of the game except the scoreboard. Texas had 3 turnovers in that game that Oklahoma had no turnovers in that game. So if they played again, which they probably will, I think, Texas is probably going to beat them. So Texas is a good team that does have the best win of the season at Alabama. I know it's early on, but still, that's the best win of the season. So they're still to be factored in as well. But like I say, just from this point, Kyle, like I mentioned, Bama has to take care of business. They got to win out. Beating Georgia, that's going to be the tallest order there is. And then we'll see what plays out in the playoffs. I just hope Michigan and Ohio State just don't already have 2 spots reserved in the playoffs. So the committee's got to be fair and open-minded about it, you know.
Yeah, looking at Michigan's resume right here, you have a 10-game win streak, number 1 scoring defense in the country, number 10 scoring offense, scoring 39 points per game, points allowed per game 7.05, beat Penn State, number 63 strength of schedule on Power Guru. You have everything that's going on with these allegations. Harbaugh has been suspended for these final 3 games of the season. Still have to play Ohio State. The play of J.J. McCarthy has been impressive. Blake Corum as well at the running back position. So, look, that's kind of how things are going. And when the committee was asked about all this stuff happening with Michigan, they said, our job is to rank them as a football team. And the win against Penn State, that's a win that they were really happy about. Their assistant coach was crying after the game. Harbaugh, I'm sure you guys saw that he said that this is America's team and that people should get behind this Michigan team. Same thing with the Michigan president. So kind of playing victim in that sense with all that stuff kind of going around them. But that's kind of what the case. Anything else, Mike, that you want to hit on, man, before I get to my next caller?
Yeah, real quick, that Michigan, their victim mentality that they're taking, it kind of makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest with you. The video doesn't lie. They're guilty. Another thing about Connor Stallions, this 007 guy they had on payroll, you know, when this whole thing broke with Michigan, he did not cooperate with the Big Ten. He refused to cooperate with the NCAA, and instead he lawyered up. Why did he do that? Because they're guilty as charged. If he was innocent, wouldn't he put everything on the table and clear the university's name, clear his name and such like that? You know what guilty people do, man? They lawyered up, just like what he did right there. And so this whole us against the world, America's team, that's the best belly laugh I've had all week right there. And this victim mentality, it's just insult to injury as far as I can see. But anyway, Kyle, I got tickets to the game this weekend. Are you going to be at the Alabama game this weekend?
Yes, I will be at the Alabama game. I'll be up in the media suite. I usually get to, if you guys want to say what's up, I'm usually at the Walk of Champions at the very end of the Walk of Champions, kind of going into the stadium. That's kind of the area where the media is, and you can't miss me. This is what I look like. You know, I'm probably wearing a shirt like this with the blazer. So yeah, come up and say what's up if you're around, Mike, and I would look forward to meeting you for sure.
All right, I might do so, Kyle. I might do so. Okay, brother, man. You take care. Have a good day.
All right, man. Take it easy. All right. Thanks, Mike, for calling in. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. That was Mike and Austin. We got a 318 and a 910 coming up next on Bama Football on YouTube. Marcel in with the super chat. I appreciate it. As much as we want Bama to be in the playoffs, I don't think this committee has respect for Alabama as much as other top 5 teams. Even if we beat Georgia and Texas, win out, they won't put us in. I mean, look, I do not know what is going to happen if we get down the road and if Alabama is able to beat Georgia head-to-head in a game where Georgia is undefeated and now at that number 1 spot. I think last night the biggest thing from the committee was ranking Georgia at the number 1 spot. I mean, this team has played 2 complete games against 2 really good teams, Missouri and Ole Miss, and I'm starting to think, like, what if Alabama gets to that point and they're able to beat Georgia and it's a super tight game? Do you leave Georgia out or do you still put Georgia into the playoffs? Could you imagine that if Alabama, because at that point, Alabama would have won 11 games in a row. They're undefeated in SEC play. It'd be hard to, can you imagine at the end of the day if 2 SEC teams are able to get into the playoffs versus 2 Big Ten teams? Maybe that could happen. Right? So you have an undefeated Ohio State, a 1-loss Michigan, 1-loss Georgia, and a 1-loss Alabama. Because honestly, I really think that those, it's going to be hard because who's going to be left there standing with an undefeated record? Probably Florida State out of anybody. So Florida State, I think they're in. I mean, who are they going to lose to? North Alabama this weekend? They're going to lose to Florida at the Swamp? I mean, if Billy Napier wants to save his job, honestly, and I know that's kind of tough to talk about, I mean, that's the game to do it, right? Mike Norvell is a name that has certainly been rising. The job that he has done with Florida State has been really impressive to see him continue to transform that Florida State team, because the last time that Alabama and Florida State played, Alabama completely they demolished the program. The program almost like went down a level from FBS. It was crazy. They had the coaching changes, and now they're finally where they think that they are. They got a quarterback who's balling out of control. Those wide receivers are dangerous. That's a good team, and I think they're absolutely going to go undefeated. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I'm just glad that this is the last year where these people in the room get to choose, because there's some deserving teams, and Alabama is certainly one of them, playing like the hottest team in the country. With that said, we go right back to the phone lines, and we got a 318. Let's get it. I appreciate you being patient. Who am I on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
What's going on, Kyle? It's Hunter. I'm calling out of Austin, but obviously, as you can see, 318, originally from Northeast Louisiana. Yeah,
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for joining the show, man. Welcome on in, and what's on your mind, man? Take it away.
First and foremost, I mean, just looking at the rankings, I mean, with college football this year, I mean, we have chaos in November every year. But, man, if there was ever a sticky situation to be in, the playoff committee is in one right now. I mean, because if you think about it, what happens if, say, which you mentioned earlier, if either Michigan or Ohio State, which, of course, they're going to have one loss, either Oregon or Washington are going to have to lose another game, and then Alabama wins out, it's such a tricky situation, because you're gonna get into another situation where you're having to wonder, okay, do we take the most deserving teams, or do we take the 4 best teams? And I don't know what your stance on it is, but after seeing TCU get splattered on live TV last year, and after seeing Oklahoma showings over the past few years as well, man, I really don't care much about the most deserving teams getting in. Now, I know that might be controversial, but at the end of the day, even if Alabama is left out, I want to see 2 incredibly competitive games. If that means Alabama is left out, that means Alabama is left out of the rankings entirely. That's fine. I just want to see 4 really, really strong teams get into the playoff, and if that means Alabama gets in, if that means they stay out, either way. But yeah, I mean, it's a tricky situation. Alabama still has a lot on their plate. I mean, I'm thankful that the Iron Bowl is at least starts during the daytime, because, man, if there was ever a land of sorcery, it would be Jordan Hare at nighttime.
Yep.
For the Iron Bowl. It's always tricky. I mean, I've been watching Bama football. I'm 23 now. I've been watching them since I was about 7 years old. And, man, I have watched some of the craziest situations happen in the Iron Bowl, especially when it's on the road. And then, of course, Georgia, which is basically another away game. But I like Alabama in that game. I think both teams are playing really well. I think Georgia is playing very well on both sides of the ball. I think Alabama is doing the exact same. But I don't know. I have this weird feeling that Alabama just is going to win it all this year if given the shot. If they're given the chance to get into the playoffs, I really don't care who they play. They could play Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. Again, I really don't care. I just think Alabama I think they felt the sting of that Texas loss. And then I think they felt the embarrassment of that rough showing on the road against USF. And then with Jalen Milroe getting benched, still showing great leadership for the team and cheering on both quarterbacks, I think they really rallied around Jalen Milroe as a leader of this team. And then, of course, you've got leaders all over the defense. I mean, it's like every single position has a leader at every position. So it's just really great to see. But, I can talk forever about how proud I am of this team. But, yeah, I mean, after that Texas loss, I mean, they looked like they were dead in the water. And honestly, I think most of the national media types left them dead in the water. But, man, they looked incredible.
Yeah, and that's a bad aftertaste that has lasted months, because I think in some eyes that really haven't followed kind of the heartbeat of the team like we have. I mean, I'm here in Tuscaloosa. I have seen the attitude change. I have seen these guys transform their overall mentality. I mean, after that game against Texas, to watch Dallas Turner get up on the podium that Monday and not want to be there and was just completely withdrawn and completely hurt from that game, to where these guys are now and how they're locked in, laser focused, how they know that one game is an elimination game, and overall just how they have been playing overall. I mean, look at against Kentucky, look at against LSU, and I get it. I mean, it's it's an overall type assessment, but this team isn't deserving. This team is one of the best 4 teams right now. Georgia has proven that. Alabama has proven that. Yeah. I think that Michigan and Ohio State honestly have yet to prove that. I think they're going to play in that game, and we're going to see how those 2 teams hit. And if they are a heavyweight caliber, then one of those teams is going to get in. Florida State, I mean, have they proved it? I mean, with their schedule, you could point to their schedule, and same thing with Washington, and same thing with Oregon. Have those teams really proved it? Texas, they're not playing like they were at the beginning of the season. This is a different team. So,
not at all.
I mean, is this the same? You get Bama and Texas on a field, doesn't matter. Bryant-Denny, Austin, wherever. Alabama is the favorite in that game, 100%. So,
absolutely.
I like you said, it's the 4 most deserving teams. That's, it's the 4 best teams. We're the 4 best teams. Bama, 100% a 4 team. And like you were saying about the Auburn game, look, we've talked about this all week going into that game, and I know this is rat poison because you got Chattanooga coming up, but that game is daunting no matter what the year is, no matter who the coach is. Yep. Gus Malzahn was able to beat Nick Saban several times, with a really good defense and a quarterback that would rise up. You know who beat Nick Saban head-to-head was Bo Nix, right? So Bo Nix is able to beat him. And that was his freshman season or whatever. I mean, Bo Nix has been in college football for like 7 years. So we've seen some wild things.
Like he's been there since he was 15.
Yeah, and exactly. And with everything that Alabama has on the line, this is Auburn's Super Bowl, right? They get to play one big game a year. And that's a challenging team. They were up on Georgia earlier in the season, 10-0. Hugh Freeze, we've pointed to the fact that he's been able to beat Nick Saban not once, but twice when he was at Ole Miss. It's a tough game, 100%. And it seems like they finally found some offense. And, Malzahn said he could score Hugh Freeze said he could score whatever he wanted to against Arkansas this last week, so they have a little bit of confidence. What else, man? I appreciate you calling in, man, in the dialogue. What other points you got?
Of course, Oklahoma State, we're talking about Bama, but Oklahoma State got a taste of that Gus Malzahn special last week. I mean, they looked amazing. They came in and they upset Oklahoma, and they went and got body bagged by UCF and Gus Malzahn at the helm of that team, of course. But I mean, I feel like, and this is my last point, I feel like a lot of times Alabama is criticized heavily for their loss against Texas and then their performance against USF. And I've even seen people criticize us for only winning by 6 in one of the toughest venues in college football against a pretty tough A&M team. I know they just fired their coach, but I don't care. It doesn't matter. A&M is very similar to Auburn. They could have not won a single game. If you go into their building, it doesn't matter if it's early in the season, middle of the season, end of the season, day or night, they're going to give you their best showing. If you are a team, you circle Alabama every single week. It doesn't matter if it's Chattanooga, Auburn, or if it's A&M or whoever, because that's the brand that we've established. People make their seasons by beating Alabama, and that's what Texas is living off of right now. And honestly, I still think Florida State is living off their win over LSU. I mean, if you want to criticize Alabama for looking rough on the road against USF, let's not forget Florida State only beat Bowling Green by 2 points on the road. I remember that game too. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm only 23, but I remember that game very well. So it's not like Florida State has just looked like this completely dominant team. And let's be honest, if LSU and Florida State played again, they might win. And they may not. I don't know, because LSU's defense, they couldn't have paid for a stop against Alabama in either half of that game. So you don't know. But LSU's offense didn't look great that night, but they look great now. I mean, they blew out Florida last week. So who knows? I mean, it's such a tricky situation because, like you said, I think it's hard to argue that Alabama is not. I think it's hard to argue against the fact that Alabama is one of the best 4 teams in the country right now.
Yeah.
And I think the main talking heads who don't want Alabama to be in the playoffs just don't want them to be in because they know they're going to compete hard and likely win and make it to the national championship. And then once they get there, they'll likely win the national title. I think we've gotten to a point now, I mean, everybody talks about Bama fatigue, but it's real. I mean, you get tired of seeing the same team win. It's like in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And if you grew up in the early 2000s, you hated the Yankees. You hated the Red Sox. You hated the teams that won all the time. Now you hate the Dodgers. They win a lot, but you hate Alabama for the same reason. And a lot of times, you don't want to see them in the playoffs. You don't want to see them in contention because they'll likely come in and they'll likely smoke your favorite team by 2 or 3 possessions because that's just the style of ball we play.
Yep.
And with that point, I'll go ahead and I'll let you get on to the next caller. Kyle, it's been great. It's been a while since I called in. Man, last time I called in, I was 19 years old. I was a freshman in college, man. But, yeah, it's been good talking to you. And, hey, appreciate what you do. It's great to have somebody like this who speaks objectively about Alabama football and doesn't seem to always want to leave them out there in the desert and bury them somewhere where we can't find them. So, yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you hosting this show. It's always great to give the fans the opportunity to call in and talk. But, yeah, you have a great one, Kyle. Thank you.
All right, man. Take it easy. I appreciate it. What a call. That was you have these younger fans that call in and they have such a great take, and some people just can talk college football, can talk sports. I mean, I love it. So that was certainly a great call. It's crazy. You kind of seen even from him, like 19 to 23 years old, that transformation. How long we've been doing this too. I remember doing the call-in show, like 5 years ago, and just kind of starting out. Now you see that everybody's doing, they have their live shows and this and that. So I appreciate you guys joining me. It's just kind of amazing to see kind of the world of growth on the sports platform. We got a 910 calling in, and then we got David from Louisiana that we'll get in. All right, so 910, let's do it. Hey, thanks for being patient. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who am I on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, Kyle, this is Christian. I'm calling in from Cibolo, Texas. I know it says 910 is because I'm from North Carolina, so
all right, yeah,
I know it's a little different.
Well, I appreciate you calling in, man. Welcome to the show, man. Take it away.
Yeah, so I was looking at the the rankings. I was watching the rankings last night, and I mean it's a little tricky for Alabama right now, But my main thing with everything, and I was just doing a little bit of a digging and a little bit of research of my own, and I was thinking, right? So Ohio State, Michigan, obviously they have to play. The winner of that game goes on to the Big Ten championship, and the loser of that game, well, they're idle of that week, right? So you just keep that in mind, okay?
Okay.
Alabama, obviously we're number 8, right? Because Texas is, they're in front of us, they beat us, or whatever. So, you can't per se jump Texas right now because Texas has the best win out of all the one-loss teams, and that's including Oregon and Alabama. Texas has the better win. They went to Bryant-Denny Stadium. They won. They beat us fair and square. 10-point game. Okay. Now, with that being said, I don't see where Oregon should be number 6, considering their strength of schedule. I understand if they want to go off of the eye test, which is fine. Oregon seems like the more complete team, but if we go back over the years, where does Bo Nix come from? The SEC, right? So Bo Nix has a track record when he plays SEC teams to fold. We saw that the year prior where they played Georgia, they got spanked. We saw that when he was at Auburn, he got spanked by the SEC West. See what I'm saying? So they want to give Oregon and they want to give everybody a clean slate per week, as what they said. That's fine. The thing is, for Alabama to move up, I believe Alabama has to beat somebody, a.k.a. Georgia, which we pray stays undefeated until they play Alabama in the SEC championship, because that win will not only forgive Alabama for that loss to Texas early in the season, but now Alabama has the best win out of all one-loss teams. They beat a Georgia team who's on a 30-game win streak in the championship game, which brings me to Michigan, Ohio State. The winner's going to go on, win the Big Ten. Cool, they're in.
Mm-hmm.
But that loser, not only will they enter that final week on a one-game losing streak, but they also aren't a conference winner, so they shouldn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
So that win against Georgia will not only help Alabama out, because the team that's in front of them, if Texas goes on and wins the Big 12, cool. But their best win would then come from a two-loss Oklahoma team, two-loss Oklahoma State team. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now you want to go with the eye test and things like that. Alabama would, at that point, have the better win, which means Alabama would be the better out of all those one-loss teams. So they should move up forward. And the only way I see Alabama get left out is if we actually see a lot of bias towards the SEC at that point, which I just don't believe that'll happen. I don't see how you leave out a SEC champion, no matter no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, we've been doing this college football playoffs for a while now. This particular season, it seems like this is the time that we've talked about the Pac-12 the most ever, and it all kind of started from Coach Prime, and then these Pac-12 teams just didn't lose, right? And now here they are, and you have to have the conference championship. There's not an even number kind of vying for those top four spots. And it gets tricky because the one metric to me that I think should probably weigh more than anything is the strength of schedule, right? Like what type of gauntlet did you play? Who are the teams you beat? And I think where I'm having a difference of opinion is that the committee, it seems to me that they are valuing style points it goes like this: style points, head to head, and then strength of schedule, right? And that's just how I see it. And I think, honestly, head-to-head, of course, matters. That should probably be up there. And then it should be strength of schedule. And then it should be kind of style points. Because, let's face it, in the world of college football, there's kind of a different level. Like, that top 15 is a lot better than the rest of the world of college football. And you're seeing that, you have to see it because teams have to get, people on their schedule. But I think the strength of schedule should certainly matter. And Alabama has 100% played gauntlet of a schedule. They really have. I get it. It's not the murderer's row to go through Arkansas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and LSU, but I mean, it is very challenging. And what they were able to do during that stretch and to be undefeated in the SEC, that says a lot. And if they're able to go against down to Auburn, that is also an impressive win. And then if they're able to beat Georgia, a team like you said that hasn't lost in almost 30 games now. What can you guys help me inside the comment box? What is the last time? What's a winning streak for Georgia as of today? What is it?
They're at 28 today.
28 games. So, man, that's unbelievable. I mean, that's what a streak. So, and can you imagine if Alabama gets to that point, things are still running, they're able to beat that type of Georgia team, and then for them to potentially still not make it, and for Georgia to still not make it, I agree with you. It just seems, Jarvis is saying 27, but I mean 27, 28. It's 28, right? Is it 28?
28.
I mean, you got to think the SEC is carrying weight in there. And I think that, the committee will see that. And I think, look, and we still haven't had this happen in college football. We still haven't had that weekend where everything blows up. Let me show you guys a graphic real quick. I just put this together. These are the odds for this coming week, and I'll get to my next call in just a second. David, hang on. So these are who is everybody is playing and kind of the remaining games, and I also put the odds on the back end as well. So let's look at this real quick. So you have number 1, Georgia, and we're at the top of the left of your screen. The last 2 wins against Missouri and Ole Miss. And the reason I just put these games is because this is when the college football playoff started, and the playoff committee said that we look at this as a new slate every single week. Those wins are impressive. Missouri, Ole Miss, those teams are ranked. They have Tennessee, who is also ranked. They're a 10-point favorite in that game. Now you have Ohio State. They were trailing against Rutgers at the halftime break, able to come back and win that one handedly. Same thing against Michigan State. They are a 27-point favorite against Minnesota, and then take on Michigan the following week. Michigan is 10-0 on the season, beat up on Purdue. According to Harbaugh, this was like the biggest win in program history against James Franklin and Purdue in Happy Valley. And now they take on Maryland, where they are a 19-point favorite over Coach Locks and his squad, and then they take on Ohio State. Florida State, they were able to take care of Pitt. We're tied with Miami at the halftime. Now they take on Northern Alabama. That's kind of that back-end game, just like Alabama has their game against Chattanooga. Washington, as you can see, they just beat USC and Utah, which I guess is impressive. Now, look, this is interesting. They are a 2.5. They're underdog in Corvallis against Oregon State. That is a game that everybody is going to be watching. Oregon, they just beat Cal and USC, and they're a 23.5 favorite against the Sun Devils. And then you have Texas, who is favored by 7 against Iowa State, considering the fact that they just lost their last 2 games by a combined 6 points. Then you have Bama, who is favored by almost 45 against Chattanooga. So there's kind of how things look for the weekend slate of the top 8 teams. You want to make one more point before we bounce out to my next caller? Go ahead, man.
Yeah, you even just said it. With the Oregon State, their last 2 games are going to be Washington and Oregon. So, with that being said, I honestly don't see Oregon State going 0-2. I just have a feeling they're going to go 1-for-1, whether it be this week or next week. They're gonna hit jackpot. They're gonna hit the nail on the head. I don't see them losing. They have a pretty good defense and a really good run game. That ball control that they have with that running game is gonna be something to watch out for. So with those 2 last games that they have, I don't see them losing both of them. Mm-hmm. I don't.
Yeah.
So I think that'll help Alabama a lot. And something tells me Oklahoma probably, because Texas, they don't finish very well. Mm-hmm. Something tells me when they face Oklahoma in that Big 12 championship game, I think they're going to get caught again. So I just, if college football continues doing how it's been doing for the past years, Texas is going to lose one more, per usual, back to the regular Texas that they normally are. Start strong, can't finish. And then Oregon or Washington, or one of those 2 teams are going to slip up. Obviously, they'll still play each other in the Pac-12 championship, which will knock one team completely out. But I just don't feel Washington has the strength of record or strength of schedule to surpass all the other teams that they've played. And if Alabama continues to win, that'll even out the playing field right there. Alabama have the better strength of record, better strength of schedule, and the better win out of all the one-loss teams.
Yep.
So I think that'll help a lot. Obviously, Michigan, Ohio State still have to play. So the loser of that can honestly, they can just write that off, or we'll just go next year. Yep. Because without any Big Ten championship, even an appearance, even if you get there and lose, I just don't, especially to Iowa, I just don't see them doing that. So whoever loses that game will definitely help Alabama out, but Alabama's going to get the help they need. Just hasn't happened yet.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you calling in, man. Please call again next time. Good rapping with you, and we'll catch you soon.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, man.
Enjoy listening to you every day.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate the support. All right, David from Louisiana, man. Let's do it. All right, David, welcome on in, man. Appreciate you calling in, man. Welcome to the show.
No problem, brother. Good thing about being the owner of your own business, you can call when you want to. I just had to get everybody lined out this morning and get everything going, and then got to go pay about $12,000 in equipment notes and stuff like that. I pay about $10,000 to $12,000 a month just on equipment that I own.
Yeah,
I stay broke a lot.
It's an expensive world. I live right next to a Publix grocery store. Okay, and I have 2 kids, and I mean, if you have a Publix, I don't prefer to go to Publix. It's just it's right there. But we have in Tuscaloosa, we have Publix, Winn-Dixie, and Piggly Wiggly, and then we have Fresh Market. Look, it seems to me that Winn-Dixie is, that seems to be fine. But what I've been doing is I've actually been going to Sam's Club and I've been loading up. So I have, and I can strategically kind of plan for the week, whatever. It's an expensive world that we live in. So I appreciate you guys' support. This is my full-time job. I know you have yours as well. But today we're talking college football like we do every single day at 9 a.m. Central Time right here on Bama Football on YouTube. So David, the playoff rankings were just released. What's your take on how things are shaking out right now? And how big was it for Georgia to be put back at that number 1 spot when you look way down the road at the SEC championship game?
Well, the way I look at it is Georgia, and I don't like Georgia at all, deserve to be number 1, especially how they dismantled Ole Miss, which we all know Ole Miss don't have a defense worth a flip. So they deserve to be the number 1 team in the nation as of right now. The eye candy, that's one thing, but my scenario is what if, now it's just a what if, Michigan beats Ohio State by 3 points whenever they play each other, and the committee decides to say, well, Ohio State lost by 3 points. That's their first loss of the season. We'll still keep them in the top 4. What if? Just a what if. I think it's going to happen. Or the NCAA, we still got a couple weeks left, and before there's a national championship, says, we got enough evidence that we can actually ban Michigan from playing for a national championship. It's a what if. Nobody knows what could happen. Then they just drop them completely out. Then, everybody trickles up. But, Texas still got to lose another game. I believe that could happen this weekend against Iowa State. FSU could lose to Florida. Florida, you can't sleep on an SEC team. Florida's decent. They're not the greatest team in the world. Washington could lose to Oregon State. Oregon could lose to Oregon State. Oregon State is ranked number 11, I believe, in the college football playoff. Now, what if they beat both of those teams? That they're so highly on, and everybody was saying that LSU could be the first 2-loss team to ever make a college football playoff. And what if the committee decides to say, well, we're just going to jump Oregon State up there? There's all this what ifs. You never know what this committee's going to do.
Sure.
But, there's always that possibility. But I believe it's going to end up, if they don't ban Michigan and Michigan don't lose no games or whatever, I believe it'll be Michigan. Bama wins out. Bama will be in there. Mizzou could possibly win out and be a 2-loss team if everybody else loses out. You just never know. I don't see how they got 2-loss teams. Louisville's number 10. They only got 1 loss. What if they win out? Nobody knows what's going to happen with this committee. It just don't make no sense to me how I don't know. They need to have I have no clue how they need to do this, because these people up there on this committee just don't know, to me, what they're talking about, because it just changes and they're keeping the same team in the same places pretty much. The only one that's been flipping lately has been Ohio State and Georgia.
Well, this is kind of the concerning thing about it is like the loss for Oregon to Washington didn't really move them anywhere. And that's kind of concerning, because what if, I asked that because what if, you look to Michigan and Ohio State, and where are those two teams? Somebody's got to win that game. Where are those two teams going to fall out to, right? The thing, so here's the thing for everybody that's watching right now. Go to the ESPN, and then go to ESPN College Football, and then type in rankings, and then go to the All-State Playoff Predictor. And you can punch in these type of scenarios that we're talking about here, and it'll show you kind of percentages what the computer thinks. And it's pretty interesting to think about. Now, when you do that with Alabama, if Alabama is able to beat Chattanooga, beat Auburn, and beat Georgia, they have a 94% chance of getting into the playoffs. So it kind of gives you those scenarios like that. And I think that overall, if Georgia stays at that number one spot and Alabama is able to take care of business in the SEC championship, look, Auburn's going to be tough. Georgia is going to be tough. And I think there's a lot of people right now that is like, they just waltz through Georgia. I think they beat Georgia, but it's going to be a hell of a game. That could be even the national championship could be taking place at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's going to be the hottest ticket in college football, 100%. Georgia's loaded up. They're healthy finally. Brock is back. That's great. You want to be able to go against Georgia with Brock back, because the last thing that you want to do with the committee is be like, oh, well, you beat a Georgia team that didn't have Brock Bowers, right? So you want to play them at their best. But overall, I mean, I just find it so unrealistic for the committee to leave out a SEC team. But I mean, if there was a year to do it, it would be a year when you have a Big Ten that's undefeated, a Pac-12 that's undefeated, an ACC that's undefeated, and a team that beat Bama head-to-head, which would be Texas if they're able to run the table and win the Big 12. But like you said, when you look to Texas' schedule, I think they got to slip up. I mean, Texas has to slip up either against Iowa State, Texas Tech, and right now, as of today, they're scheduled to play Oklahoma State. I know Oklahoma State just took it on the chin, but I still feel that the Big 12 can get squirrely. Anything else, David, before we wrap it up? Make another point, man.
I really don't have another point per se. I just believe that this committee, in my humble opinion, and I know the comment box is going to be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I just feel like they're trying to keep Alabama out, because Alabama has been in the playoffs how many years? You know, I mean, yeah, last year we didn't get in it, you know, and the year before that, blah, 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 whatever. But they're tired of seeing Alabama win, you know, or play in the playoffs, just like Georgia, you know. I mean, I feel like they kind of want Georgia to three-peat just to have, you know, I don't know. This is just a big old mess. Something's got to give. Maybe they can get, I don't know, can't get Joe Biden to do it because he'd blah, 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 blah all the way through it, but it'd be just a big old mess up there. But somebody's got to figure it out, because these people up there just don't know what they're talking about, because the way Alabama they didn't throttle, but they beat down LSU good, the number one offense in the country, and then they went in and handled business against Kentucky. You know, the only thing that they're looking at, in my personal opinion, is how we were stagnant against USF. You know, while these other teams have went in and pretty much dominated these lower tier teams, even though they're Division I teams, went in and, dismantled them. Yeah. And we struggled against them, but we were still trying to find our identity. If we'd have probably had Milroe in, it'd have been a whole different game, because we've seen how Milroe has, each and every week, he's just gotten better and better and better and better. And just imagine if he does not declare for the draft next year, this team here, with what we have returning next year, is going to be the scariest team in college football, period. Nobody's going to touch us with our running back room. We got some great DBs. Trey Amos, from my understanding last night when I was listening to Coach Smook and him, said that he has not declared or has not put his name in or anything like that. I know that's later on, but he still has, I believe, one more year of eligibility because of the COVID year, to where he could play one more year. And he's, when he stepped in for Terrion Arnold and he's played a couple of, times, he's been very good at what he does. So this team next year is going to be dangerous. There will be a quarterback competition next year, whether Milroe's there or not, like it is every year, But with that being said, man, God bless each and every one of you. God bless this great country. Roll Tide, and I hope and pray we can keep on winning. And we've got to do some style points this weekend against Choo Choo Train, Tennessee. And we got to beat Auburn, at least by 14 or more points. We have got to beat Auburn. That's not going to be an easy task, but I believe we can. And then go in and get focused and prepared to beat Georgia, even if we beat them by 3 points or 7 points, that's a statement game right there that Alabama has found their identity, and there's no reason for this committee to keep Alabama out of the top 4 and go into the playoffs and just dismantle everybody else we play against. So everybody have a great day. I got to take care of what I got to take care of. Y'all be safe and God bless. Roll Tide.
All right. Take it easy, David. Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks for watching, fam. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. I appreciate you guys being here. I got Coach Saban's SEC teleconference. I got Coach Saban at 6 p.m. You can catch those press conferences right here at Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you if you guys would become fan funders of the YouTube channel. Just go up to the top of this YouTube channel and you'll see a join button. Hit the join button as low as $2.99. I really appreciate all you guys' support, the super chats as well, and just being right here and hitting the thumbs up and being subscribers of our YouTube channel. Coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. My name is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Thanks for watching.